Hello, Sandman Nation. It is Super Bowl week. Woohoo! We have a jam-packed episode, so let's get right into it. It is time to enter Sandman Sports. And the only thing better than it being Super Bowl week is being here with the greatest co-hosts ever, starting with Mr. Pat Klett. Pat is so freaking awesome and so freaking talented. If you haven't seen this guy sing and dance, you're truly missing out. In fact, fun fact, he was actually invited to perform at the Super Bowl halftime show this year. That offer was quickly rescinded, however, when Pat's contract demands included a fog machine, a tiger, and a hologram of John Madden in a Vikings jersey. Maybe next year, Pat. There's always next year, my friend. And of course, also with us is Mr. Bill Sanders, the Super Bowl of people. Yes, Bill is like the Super Bowl in many ways. Millions, okay, hundreds, tune in to him. People like to bet with him. The more alcohol, the better. And his wardrobe malfunctions would set some serious pay-per-view records. Just ask Marcy. Okay, before we get into the show, let's tell everyone where they can find us. Well, Sandman listeners, you can find us everywhere, just like available space in the Buffalo Bills championship trophy case. One awesome place that you can find us is our very cool and newly improved website, entersandmansports.com. As we mentioned last week, we are really proud of the changes that we've made there. We've brought on a couple professional freelance writers who are pumping out great content daily. We're continuing to grow and expand. Right now, we've got coverage across the NFL, NCAA football, NBA, college basketball, golf, and Major League Baseball, with a lot more to come. Oh, and we put out a call recently to all of you, to Sandman Nation, all of you talented peeps, to see if anyone is interested in writing articles or providing video content. Of course, no surprise, the amazing Mr. Nate Blackston already raised his hand, wrote his first article for the site, an ode to the Kansas City Chiefs and how this dynasty sadly isn't going anywhere anytime soon. So the haters, that's me and you, Pat, I guess we should just get used to it. If you are interested in providing content, shoot us an email at info@entersandmansports. And yes, eventually this could lead to paid opportunities. So if it's something you have passion around, contact us and let's give it a shot. So check out the new site. Let us know what you think. While you're at it, make sure to follow us, Instagram at Enter Sandman Sports, Facebook, Enter Sandman Sports. We post updates almost daily, so check that out. And of course, YouTube, Enter Sandman Sports. Hit that subscribe button there. All right, gents, let's get into it. It is one of the most anticipated weeks of the sports year. It is Super Bowl week. Just really excited about it. We're going to get into breaking down the actual game and our favorite prop bets later in the show. But for the opening, I thought we'd look back at the past 58 Super Bowls and share some of our favorite memories and moments from this iconic event. So, a couple things here. One, I definitely want to hear about some of your favorite games, favorite plays, performances from on the field during these games throughout the years. But number two, I also want to hear about some of your favorite memories from the game off the field. So maybe it's your favorite commercials, your favorite Super Bowl halftime shows, maybe a crazy moment happened during the game that you'll always remember. Maybe it was a bet you made for the Super Bowl. So just anything that comes to mind from Super Bowls past, both on and off the field. Pat, why don't you get us started, buddy?
Yeah, my favorite Super Bowl memory was growing up. I was a huge Marcus Allen fan. So the Raiders, Redskins, I think that was 83, maybe. I might have been 7 years old. Running around.
I think it might have been 84, the year of where the Super Bowl played, but yeah, it was right around that time, yeah.
So yeah, I was about 7 years old, and I just remember jumping over the back of the couch into the end zone. Like it was the offensive lineman, and
Love it.
Just flying through the air like Marcus Allen. And I remember that play where he's going one way and reverses fields and goes, I don't know, some 60 yards for a touchdown. So yeah, that was my first love of the Super Bowl, was Marcus Allen. Other than that, I mean, the Patriots comeback against Atlanta was probably the one that is the biggest in my head, just because I was so ahead in this prop pool. I was winning. I was on my way. I was checking all the boxes. And then that comeback basically stole so much money from me. So that was a tough one. And the 85 Bears was another memorable one. I was in third grade, the refrigerator Perry. We even had a guess the score and winner in the third grade class, which was interesting. And that was also the same week on my birthday when the Challenger shuttle blew up.
Oh my gosh.
So all in 1 week, we had all this stuff going on in class. And I picked the Patriots that year to roll. So back then everybody knew that I had a little bit of a gift, But yeah, I always look forward to, and the Prince halftime was probably the best halftime show of all time, just because we're neighbors. Me and Prince we're neighbors. Just lives down the block, and that was such a sweet show when it started raining while he's playing Purple Rain. I mean, what are the odds? And and I always love the commercials. I can't pick out any in particular. Every year you forget the commercials as soon as they come by, but it's always fun that first few TV commercial breaks just to see what commercials are they going to have this year. So for me, those are my memories of Super Bowl.
Those are good ones, brother.
Yeah. Do you want to? Did you guys see my new backdrop?
Yes, and we'd love to hear more about it.
I would love for you to walk us and all of our listeners through this gorgeous backdrop.
Well, so, I like to highlight some of the books I've read. We got 50 Shades of Greg, a motivational book, The Little Engine That Could, Becoming Hef by Hugh Hefner. Yep. And then, Bill, I bought your book, How to Pick Up Drunk Chicks. So those are the 4 books I'm reading. I always like to have, you always see the helmets. So I got the little mini helmets.
Oh, you got the helmets.
That you used to get for $0.25. And those, I thought I'd put those up there. Whoops.
Oh, there goes something.
And then finally, the football.
Dude, that is just
1986. My mom's uncle used to paint footballs for the Vikings when they'd have historic games, and that was his job. And my grandma one Christmas got me the water boy football. Pretty big deal.
Were the Vikings any good at that time?
At that point,
in the mid-80s?
Not really. No. So I don't think he had a ton of work. Maybe Darren Nelson had a 100-yard game, or Tommy Kramer threw.
Oh, Tommy Kramer.
I was wondering who was the quarterback around then.
At the time, I was Waterboy with Matt Burke, the center for the Vikings.
Oh
my gosh.
And Ravens. Yeah, he was actually, I think he was more ball boy at the time, but yeah, we were in that same.
So is that like an eternal brotherhood? Once you're water boys, you could just call up him and be like, "What up, bro?"
I bet he'd be like, "Who are you again?" Yeah, he was a year older than me, and so we, I was in maybe 5th grade, 4th grade, something like that, and my brother was on varsity, and so my grandma thought she'd get me into football.
That's cool.
Had it ever since. So.
I like the new backdrop, dude.
Yeah.
Well done.
It's probably going to be gone by the end of the week, but we'll figure out a permanent solution. Yeah.
All right.
I think maybe a new backdrop every episode.
That could get people to tune in.
Maybe let's back that participation awards.
Yeah. Start putting those in
those blue ribbons.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's nice.
How about you, Bill?
On that, Pat.
Got some Super Bowl memories for us?
Well, you mentioned commercials, and that was kind of fun going back when I was doing my research this week, just to go back and look at best Super Bowl commercials, and just a few that, just off the top, I was like, oh my gosh. The first one that I vividly remember as a kid was the Wendy's "Where's the Beef" commercial. That's probably the one that I go back to, as the first one. And I don't remember when that one came out. Mid 80s, early to mid 80s.
That would that would have been like 83, probably 84. Yeah.
Well, the Seahawks were nowhere near the Super Bowl at that time, so every year it was just like, okay, whose house are we going to? And it's going to be a blowout. So Bierman wrote a great article, shout out, and mentioned this week, and it's on the website. But he did a little research on just blowouts in the Super Bowls, kind of the eras, and fortunately, we've actually had a lot of really good Super Bowls of late. So, but in the 80s, it felt like every year it was just an absolute demolition. So anyway, the commercials, to Pat's point, were kind of fun because the games usually suck. But my first big memory, and this will not surprise anyone that I'm going to mention this, but the Super Bowl that the Seahawks made, Super Bowl 40 in Detroit, first time the Seahawks had made it. That one was super cool. Had a bunch of people over to the house, made amazing chili. The game didn't go as great as we hoped. The refs, complete screw job against the Steelers. And ask any fan that watched that game. I don't care, Seahawks or otherwise. And they're just like, well, and most people don't like Pittsburgh either. So they were just like, you've got to be kidding me with some of these calls. But so that was heartbreak that they lost. But then in 2015, it was like a dream. I mean, Seahawks slight underdogs against the Denver Broncos, and they just put it on him from the opening snap. If you guys remember, went through Peyton Manning's hands or kind of over him for a safety. Percy Harvin, shout out Skull Vikes. He ran the opening kickoff the second half back. The Seahawks were up 36-0 in that game. So I don't know if people remember that, but again, blowout. Everybody else in the country is probably bored out of their minds. But, for us, I don't remember a game that had that significance that was that stress-free ever in my entire life. And so it was just like a victory parade for the last, 2-3 quarters, maybe 2-3 quarters, which is cool. And then the last shout out I'll have, and this is not Super Bowl specific, but the Seahawks winning the Super Bowl was really cool. I went downtown to the victory parade with my two oldest kids, and it was sub-zero in Seattle that year, wind chill, which is nuts for out here. Million people are packing downtown streets to see this victory parade go by. We had to park over 2 miles south of the parade route. There was just no parking down there at all. So we then walked our way up to the parade route. It's just one of those memories that will always be with me, that Isaac and Sid were there with me. We got some great pictures, saw the parade buses go by like a glimpse, and froze our asses off for the entire day, but it was worth every second. Anyway, that was kind of my Super Bowl memories. Bierman, how about you?
So for me, and you mentioned this, Bill, or alluded to this, I wrote about this recently, but one of my main memories from growing up related to the Super Bowl is how disappointing this game typically was. I mean, it always has had massive hype, but the first 33 games of the Super Bowl had an average margin of victory of 16 points per game, and only 8 of those 33 games ended within a 1-score game. I mean, they were blowouts, almost all of them. So, yeah, in the 80s and 90s, which were, just my formative years, especially the 80s, a lot of brutal games there. Just briefly, listen to these 5 games in a row between the time I was 11 and 16. Okay, so I'm really getting in to football at this point. 84, you mentioned it. Marcus Allen and the Raiders demolished the Redskins 38-9, Pat. Next year, the 49ers beat down the Miami Dolphins 38-16, which actually would be Dan Marino's only Super Bowl appearance. The next year, we get to watch the vaunted 85 Bears, and quite possibly the greatest defense ever. They thrashed the Patriots 46-10. The next year, Phil Simms and the Giants thwart John Elway's Broncos 39-20. And the following year, the Washington Redskins, behind Doug Williams, who made history as first African-American quarterback to start the Super Bowl, and record-breaking Timmy Smith, who still holds the Super Bowl rushing record with 204 yards on the ground that game. They crushed the Broncos 42-10. So, guys, that was 5 games in a row, and the closest game was a 19-point victory.
Wow.
Just awful game. So the 90s, actually, it only got worse. In the 90s, the margin of victory actually went up to 18 points, but things eventually got better and more competitive, and the past 25 Super Bowls have been much better. As far as my favorite game, this was actually before I lived in Cincinnati, so I wasn't a bona fide Bengal fan yet, although I had started to like them just because I honestly thought their helmets were cool. I liked the way they played. But in 1989, I remember watching the 49ers and Bengals at my friend's house in what many consider to be one of the 5 best Super Bowls ever. I had just turned 16. I also remember my friend's parents weren't there, but their liquor cabinet was. And this was the first time I learned what a hangover was as well. But I digress. After such awful games years before, it was really great to see this one. The Niners ultimately won 2016 with Joe Montana cementing his legacy by engineering a last-minute 92-yard 11-play drive and hitting John Taylor in the end zone with 34 seconds remaining. It was just a classic game. A couple years later, I remember the Bills lost to the Giants when Scott Norwood's last-second kick sailed wide. But I also remember that was the year. That was, if you guys remember, that was during the Gulf War had just started. So Whitney Houston sang just an incredible rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner. Patriotism was very high in the country. So that was a cool one. And of course, I went to the game where the Bengals lost the Rams a few years ago at SoFi. I've talked about that one before, so I won't go deep into it, but that was cool to experience it. As far as commercials, just I will say the one with Mean Joe Green back. I mean, we were all small. I was probably 6 or 7. Pat, you were probably 2 or 3, so you might not remember it. But with him throwing the jersey to the kid because the kid gave him his bottle of Coke after a game, and I just remember watching as a kid thinking, why the hell has no sports star ever thrown me a freaking jersey? And I was like, maybe my mom. Maybe it's because my mom only buys Fanta. What the hell, Mom? Start buying Coke. So, the Budweiser Clydesdales are always iconic as well. So yeah, I love the commercials.
Budweiser's crushed it.
Yeah.
What's up? The frogs. That was pretty funny. Yeah.
And I'm not huge into the halftime shows, but you're right, Pat. The Prince one is by far the one that I remember the most, and I think was probably the best.
The Michael Jackson one was pretty cool too, though, where he like appeared up here over on, and then he's all of a sudden he's over on stage, and like, how did he do that? You know, the special effects of 1987 or whatever it was. So
Bierman, one other one to throw in there real quick was I don't know, maybe a tiny bit of recency bias in this one, but do you guys remember the Volkswagen one where the little kid's wearing the Darth Vader helmet?
Love
and
that
he's
one.
trying to
that's
summon.
a great
it's so
one.
Cute.
Yeah.
And then the dad clicks the remote start, and he's like, he thinks that he's the one that did it or whatever. That was a pretty cool commercial, I thought.
Yeah.
And then one other quick thing, you mentioned Whitney Houston, so a little bit of a nailed it preview. We're gonna do a little bit of something on there, but I didn't realize this. She is, I think, pretty unanimously given the best national anthem ever, right? For her 91 performance there, right after Gulf War. She pre-recorded that. Did you guys know that?
I didn't know that.
She did not sing. She did not sing in that Super Bowl, which I never realized. And so if you go back and watch the YouTube clip or whatever, I was like, holy shit. It's pretty obvious that she's not singing.
That's kind of disappointing, actually.
Yeah, it was a little disappointing, I thought, as well. But anyway, I mean, awesome rendition. But apparently they were really concerned about her not being able to, with the amount of crowd noise and everything else happening, they wanted to pre-record because she was concerned about it. And so I just never knew that.
Wow.
Interesting tidbit.
Awesome. Yeah, that is cool. Thank you, Bill, for sharing that. Learn something new every day. All right, boys. Well, that was fun to take a trip to Super Bowls past and share some of those cool memories. We will focus on the present and this week's Super Bowl in just a few minutes when we get to our Stone Cold Locks. But let's get into the show now. As always, we'll start with headlines from the past weekend and get into our hot takes and reflections, get into our Super Bowl Stone Cold Locks, including a breakdown of the game itself and some of our favorite props bets from the game. Then we'll get into this week's top 5, which is going to be a great one. And of course, we'll have plenty of fun and shenanigans along the way. Plus, Pat will finally explain what actually happened in jail from the 2007 Super Bowl. Let's just say it involves some queso, a halftime prop bet gone horribly wrong, and a party host who still won't speak to him.
Mm-hmm.
So, Pat, that one I've been waiting for quite some time. So
it's time to
get
it off my chest. It's time to come clean.
All right, boys. Well, we will keep the headlines short this week because there really weren't a ton, but I will briefly highlight a few of the recent happenings around the world of sports. Biggest news actually came from the NBA, where several big trades were made ahead of the deadline. Big one was Luka Doncic being traded from the Mavericks to the Lakers in exchange for Anthony Davis. There were some other parts involved too, but those were the two big names, and the Lakers are now getting a lot of chatter around their chances to win it all. So we'll see what happens there. Well, not as earth shattering as that one. The Sacramento Kings, San Antonio Spurs, and Chicago Bulls also made a big 3-team trade as the Spurs get De'Aaron Fox, the Kings get Zach LaVine, and 3 future first round and 3 second round draft picks. And the Bulls basically get cap space. In some sad news from the past week, 2 people who left their marks in the sports world left us. Longtime Baltimore Orioles infielder Rich Dower passed away at the age of 72. Dower played his entire 10-year career for the Orioles and helped them win the World Series back in 1983. He was inducted into the Orioles Hall of Fame back in 2012. He was also a longtime coach in the majors and won the 2017 World Series with the Astros as their first base coach. And then former Major League Baseball Commissioner Fay Vincent died this week at the age of 86. Vincent took over as Major League Baseball Commissioner after Bart Giamatti's sudden death in 1989. He served for 3 years. He was instrumental in helping navigate the chaotic 1989 Bay City World Series, where earthquakes wreaked havoc. He also oversaw the 1990 lockout. He expelled George Steinbrenner from the league for 2 years. And unfortunately for us Reds fans, he was adamant that Pete Rose would never be reinstated under his watch. Rest in peace, sir. Thank you for your contributions to America's pastime. You took over at a critical time for baseball. You may not have been the longest tenured or most popular commissioner, but you did oversee an important transition as the baseball world was readying for more expansion, a whole new way to look at building ballparks, and of course, interleague play just a few years later. In college basketball, Auburn remains number 1 as we get closer to the craziness of March Madness. A few notable games worth mentioning include number 11 Kansas crushing number 3 Iowa State on Monday night, 69-52. Tennessee beat down previous number 5 Florida, 64-44. And number 22 Texas Tech handled number 6 Houston in overtime, 82-81. So, boys, not a ton to react to, but there's always plenty of opportunity for hot takes in the sports world in this show. So let's get into it. Yes, that's right. It is time for Sandman Sports Hot Takes, brought to you by Mike's Hot Honey. The honey's so hot, it will be singing a sultry duet with Kendrick Lamar during the halftime show. Dress accordingly, Hot Honey. Dress accordingly. Want to see what all the fuss is about and why we constantly rave about this awesome freaking honey? Go to mikeshothoney.com, order some right now, or go to the honey aisle at your local grocery store. All right, Pat, start us off, sir. What do you got for this week's hot takes?
Another game you forgot to mention was Calipari. Calipari taking Arkansas back into Kentucky.
Oh, good point.
With the upset there, and I think Kentucky's lost a couple in a row here, so they're on a rough stretch. But yeah, for me, I watched a lot of golf. I was laid up, I was sick from last week's episode, and that pretty much lasted until yesterday. And so I was laid up, watched a lot of golf. That tournament at Pebble was awesome. Rory and Shane, the Irish boys getting her done. So much fun to watch. And then what a beautiful course. And you're watching Rory shave the corner on 14 with his driver, and he's, they're showing where all the drives were today, and he's 60, 70 yards ahead of everyone else, not even close. So when his driver's on and he's putting in the fairway, and he's a tough one to beat. But what a beautiful course, beautiful tournament. So that was my first exposure to golf this season, which is fun. So I'm starting to get excited about this waste management this weekend. But yeah, other than that, just trying to get healthy over here. How about you, Bill?
Yeah, well, glad you're feeling better this week a little bit, at least. And that was a really fun tournament. They took Monterey Peninsula off the Rota, and a few years back I went down for a boys trip, played some golf down there. Monterey Peninsula is not I did not enjoy that course at all, actually. And so Spyglass was super cool. Pebble was awesome. But to see those guys carve that thing up like they're able to do is just baffling. I mean, that course is so hard. Those greens are small, very undulating. And so Rory, like you said, Pat, he was on fire. And my question for you guys is, so that was his 27th PGA Tour victory. Do you think Rory gets to 40 wins?
Yeah.
He's 35.
Yeah, I mean,
right
that's
now.
a sport, especially with his health and fitness. He's so strong. He's 35, but he's probably got the body of a 25-year-old. You know, he's super fit.
Yeah.
I think
10 years at least,
golf.
probably.
I always get a kick out of these
right.
golfers being like, "Oh, it's taxing on the body." It's like, all right, sure thing, buddy. You know, you're playing golf. You could probably play golf till at least 50. I mean, look at Phil Mickelson. Mickelson was winning majors at close to 50, right? So
yeah,
I
no
think
chance.
There's no doubt in my
Beerman's
mind.
saying no
chance.
First
of all,
you don't think he gets
Eric,
there?
Huh? What is Eric?
No chance. So that's 11 more he has to get, right? Is that what you're saying? He's at 29 now.
27 now, so he needs 13 more.
13. Oh God, then hell no.
Yeah.
13 more. So basically, he's 2/3 of the way there at the age of 35. Yeah, he can golf, so he's 45 or 50 on the PGA Tour, but rarely do you see a lot of wins once you hit, 40, north of 40. So he's got a few good years left where, okay, he may get a couple wins a year, but I mean,
how many wins did Scheffler get last year? How many wins did Scheffler get last year?
7.
Well, I mean,
nine if you count like the Hero World Challenge.
Is, in my opinion, Scheffler is the greatest golfer we've seen since Tiger. Tiger's 20 years ago. So I can't compare Rory to that. There's no way he gets.
I love Rory. I'm a total Rory stan. So I feel like he's going to get there, but that's probably just because I want him to. And it'll be really interesting to see. I mean, if he gets one a year for the next 13, that would obviously do it. I think that's entirely possible. But a lot of talk with him now putting the green jacket on, which would be a pretty cool moment as well. But he is playing very well. Obviously, TGL is helping his game immensely. I'm kidding. But he looked phenomenal this weekend, to Pat's point.
He did look good.
Yeah. Staying on the golf one for my last hot take. RIP to throw out to Tiger Woods' mom, Tita Woods, just passed away at the age of 80. What an interesting life she watched her son lead. I can't even imagine sometimes as a parent having my kid be the greatest at something. And then the trials and tribulations, the fall from grace, the multiple falls from grace. What a crazy life. But rest in peace to Tita Woods as well. And then my last one, this is a little shot across the bow of Pat Klett, but the Huskies men's hoops just got their first ever road win in the Big Ten against the Gophers the other day. So, Huskies, I mean,
Bill doesn't mean anything by it, Pat. Don't worry. Bill's not trying to rub it in.
The Super Bowl one, I didn't mean anything by, but this one I'm actually throwing a shot. Okay. Yeah, this is a shot.
Well, this one didn't hurt. This one didn't sting as much as the Super Bowl one.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Yeah. Anyway, those are my highlights, Spearman. What do you got?
All right, gentlemen. Takes. So I'm going to start by I'm going to simply name some of the greatest running backs of all time. And then I'm going to ask you a question. Gale Sayers, Earl Campbell, Eric Dickerson, LaDainian Tomlinson, Barry Sanders. What do those 5 legends have in common?
They never played in the Super Bowl.
They all went to your high school.
No, none of them have ever been at my kitchen table. Just like Cliff Clavin would say.
That's right.
None of them ever appeared in a Super Bowl. You are correct, Mr. Sanders. I mean, that is just sad to me. I knew Sanders never did, but it's sad to me that LaDainian never did. I mean, guys, Sanders, Tomlinson, and Dickerson were number 4, our number 4 number 7 and number 9 respectively, all time in career rushing yards. And yet they never made a Super Bowl. By the way, other notable all-time greats that never played in a Super Bowl include these 5. Dick Butkus, Tony Gonzalez, Chris Carter, Warren Moon, and Bill's favorite, Steve Largent.
Yeah.
What's funny is I was, creating this list, you often hear, if you don't win a Super Bowl, you can't be considered one of the greatest ever. I would argue that the majority of those 10 players could be considered in the top 50 players of all time. And none of them even played in a Super Bowl, let alone won one. So I don't know, maybe that narrative is a little overblown. Yes, it would have been nice for them to get to experience it, but all these guys made indelible marks on the game through their consistency and length of play and just incredible statistics. So, playing in a Super Bowl didn't tarnish that for these 10. And it makes me happy because these guys do deserve all the credit they can get for what they accomplished on the field. So hang your heads high, gentlemen. Congratulations on being incredible football players, even if you aren't Super Bowl champs.
Yeah, I always rooted for Phillip Rivers and LT. That was the 2 that I really wanted to see. Those guys. That was a bummer.
Tomlinson was just a fantasy god.
Oh my God. So you know the third round reversal rule? You know the third round reversal rule from so the third round reversal rule is it's much less popular now, but he is the reason it happened. It's a fantasy football rule that if you drafted number 1, you were automatically drafting LaDainian back in the day, probably for 4 or 5 straight seasons. So the third round reversal was instead of snake, it snaked first and second round, but then in the third round it automatically went the first pick in the third round started with the number 12 guy or whatever.
Oh, wow.
So basically if you picked first, you were getting LaDainian, but then you weren't getting your next pick wasn't 24, and then your next pick wasn't like 36 or whatever in a 12-team league. So it tried to like balance it out because LaDainian was so much better than everybody else in terms of fantasy production.
Yeah, the one year I won it all, I had LT. That was the only time I ever won fantasy football. I had LT.
Just incredible. That reminds me.
You win at fantasy and other parts of life, though, don't you, Pat?
Yeah, for sure. All from reading Bill's book, How to Pick Up Drunk Chicks.
That's right. It's a classic.
Yeah,
Times bestseller. Yeah. Thank you.
Bill.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just real quick, and maybe cut this out if you don't want it, Bierman, but what the LT thing just reminded me of the dominance of certain guys through the years in fantasy and or pools. In my case, I started this pool that was so popular through the years, and you picked 4 guys at every golf event that we did, and they all had to make the cut. And then you took the low aggregate score of that team if you all 4 guys made the cut, and then that was the winner of the pool. Well, every single entry took Tiger Woods for a stretch of years. And so I actually made it a pick 5. And it's been a pick 5 ever since Tiger's dominance in the early 2000s. So for 20 plus years, the pool has actually changed in format to add an extra player because it was like you were picking 3 guys plus Tiger every single entry.
Right, every time.
Yeah. So anyway,
I gotta believe it's kind of gotta be getting that way with Scheffler though, too, right?
A little bit.
Don't you see almost Scheffler picked in every single pick 5?
A little bit, but it's not. There is definitely more parity in golf these days, even with Scheffler's dominance. So,
that's
true. It's a good call though.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, guys, let's get into our Stone Cold Lock segment. This week is an exciting one because not only are we going to break down the big game and give our predictions, but we are also going to share our favorite prop bets from this year's Super Bowl. So we'll start with the game itself. The line is Kansas City -1.5, and the over-under is 48.5. So let's just start with what we think on the game and the over under, and then we'll get into the props bets in just a minute. So Pat, why don't you start us off? Who do you like?
Give me the Eagles and the over. I just think shootout, and you know why I'm picking the Eagles.
Yeah, shocking.
It's not. It's just like I wish we had other games to pick because I just can't. I can't. I would not be able to form the words Chiefs to make a bet. It just can't. It doesn't matter. Even if whatever. Stupid game. I'm not even going to watch it.
You're going to watch. You're going to hate watch.
You've got some good reading material behind you
Yeah,
that can
that's
keep
right.
you busy.
Yeah, I'll probably just be reading.
Just be reading.
Half.
I mean, this won't surprise you guys either, but I'm on the Chiefs, and this is the part though where I've struggled. So I was all over the under, like really was all over the under. And as the week has worn on last week and into this week, for some reason I've got this nagging feeling that is bugging me that it's going to be the over. And in part because I feel like every single prognosticator out there that I've been reading is taking the over. Everyone's 27-24 or 31-28 or some sort of high scoring game, which would be awesome, entertaining. But I'm going to stick with my initial gut. I've learned enough through the years that I should. I'm going Kansas City Chiefs and the under. Those are my picks. Lock it in, Bierman.
All right, we'll lock it in. So we're all just slightly different. None of us have the exact same. So I love the Eagles, no surprise, and the under. Now, please let me just say that I've been anti-Chiefs most of the season, certainly all postseason. But this is not a pick out of spite because I would much rather win money. I did research this. I truly feel like the Eagles are the better team in this spot. As I mentioned in the Six Pack article, 15 of the last 25 Super Bowls were one-score games. Each of the last 3 were decided by exactly 3 points. So I do expect another close one here. I just expect this one to be more of a grinded out and low-scoring battle. The Eagles dominated Washington with 240 plus rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. Chiefs run defense is much better, so Hurts is going to need to step it up. He can't just turn around and hand it off to Saquon all day. Eagles have the number 2 rushing offense. The Chiefs are number 23 rushing offense. So I think that is where you're going to see some disparity, and hopefully the Eagles can take advantage of that. Both defenses are strong, but Philly's number 1 ranked unit, I think, is going to also play a huge role in this. Chiefs have played 5 games this season against top 10 defenses, and Mahomes struggled statistically in those 5 games. He was sacked 12 times, threw only 4 touchdowns in those 5 games total. So I think the Eagles are going to frustrate Mahomes. And on the other side, I think they're going to run the ball efficiently. Not as much as they did against Commanders, but I think they'll do enough to get the job done. Hurts is going to open it up. He's going to have a few big plays to Brown. And while this will be a tight one, I like the Eagles to win. Eagles 24, Chiefs 21. So I like the Eagles and the under.
All right.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, boys.
All right. Well, let's do some of our favorite prop bets then. And this
was fun.
Yeah, Pat, why don't you start us off? What do you like there?
I feel like this is going to be the Saquon game. I think they're going to feature him, and I got first TD score Saquon at plus 425.
So that's the thing I will say with props bets, and I'm glad you mentioned it, Pat. Like, to do well on props bets, you got to have an overall feel for the game, first of all. Like, you got to make like a prediction. You got to think who's going to win, and then make your prop bets based on what you think is going to happen there. So, yeah, if you think Saquon is going to have a big game, then obviously making your prop bets around Saquon's it makes a lot of sense. So I love that. You said first touchdown, and what are the odds?
First touchdown scorer, Saquon 425.
Okay. That's pretty good.
I think that is pretty good. That is for Saquon. Good. That is pretty good.
The tush push probably coming into play there a little bit.
But. Yeah, maybe, but yeah, give me that one.
Good. What about you, Bill?
Going to be him.
Yeah, I like that, Pat. Just a quick shout out, Bierman, before I get into my prop picks. If anybody's interested and you're hearing this before Sunday, we do have a props pool. We mixed it up a little bit this year, and I actually think this is going to be really interesting to see people's strategy and how they approach this thing. So we've got 450 different prop picks out there that you can sort through. You need to submit 10 of them. Each entry costs $100. You can do more than one if you want. And then what's going to happen is you're going to have a forced 100-point play on each one of those 10, and we'll pay it off as if you placed it at a casino or a sports book. And so the odds will pay out, and then we'll take the most points will be the winner. Will people take big stretch plays and try to just hit one, or will they go with 10 things that they think are more likely to happen and try to just accumulate some points. I think that's going to be really interesting to see people's game theory on this. But you can find it at mypools.entersalmonsports.com. And if you have any questions or issues, just email me, of course, at bill@entersalmonsports.com.
I feel fairly confident that Pat's first prop bet is going to show up by a few people picking that, because I do think people like Saquon, they
Big time.
probably like those odds at the plus 425. So
that's
awesome.
And my first pick, this is one that just popped right off the page to me, and it's that I really think that if Philly's first drive, I think they're going to be super aggressive, and so I think they're going to want to make sure that they get momentum, they get points on the board, and it seems like a lot of times their third down play calling has been, because we talked about this last week with the tush push. They know that they can convert on that fourth and short with the tush push. So my play that I love is that first drive, Philly to convert on a fourth down. And what also jumped out to me was plus 900 on this thing. So, obviously a risk. You only get that first drive to work with here. But Bierman, I hope I'm not stealing any of your thunder, because I know that was one on the great article you wrote. But that was one of my favorite ones, and I think I mentioned that to you.
Thunder stolen,
No,
but let's get right to it, dude. No, of course not, dude. I love that. Obviously, for all the reasons you just said. So what the couple quick things I'll add is, the Eagles, they do get a lot of pub for being super aggressive on fourth downs. They're more middle of the pack. They're I think 11th or 12th in the league in terms of going for it, but they're third in the NFL in conversion rate. So I agree with you, dude. First drive of the game, if they're moving, they're going to be aggressive, I think, especially in this game, just to, get some points on the board there. And if they do go for it, chances are they're going to convert it, just because they're so good at doing that all year long and that tush push. So, but what really got it for me is plus 900. I mean, those are great value. So it's worth a shot to me. So,
and also just one other tidbit to throw in there is that Jake Elliott's not had a great year. So he's been better as the season wore on and into the playoffs, but he's not automatic either. And so I just feel like that, if there is that decision there, they are going to stay aggressive early in this game. Yeah. I love that one. Yeah. Pat, what was your next one?
Well, if Eric was talking about maybe having it be a grinded out game. I have number 87 on the list, field goal attempt for both teams on the first drive. So start out field goal attempt.
I looked at that. I actually had written that down, because that's really good odds too. What? Do you remember what? Yeah, 1800
plus 1800.
Yeah. Totally. That was on my list too.
It's not out of the realm of possibility.
No.
That's hilarious that all these similar ones are jumping out at us. Yeah, that's a great one.
That one it seems like, plus 1800. That's a great number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something that seems pretty standard that could happen pretty easily. So
yeah, for sure. And is that field goal made or field goal attempt?
It's just attempted.
Oh wow. I mean, that
was the other.
Doesn't even have to be made. Doesn't have to be made.
Yeah. Wow. I really like that one. Might have to find.
I could see that one also being placed in that props pool. I think people, if they see that, I think they could take a chance on that one.
Yeah, that one's. I really like that one, Pat. We loved when I went down for my 50th birthday to Arizona. We did these. We had all these punt bets going at the DraftKings down there, which is super cool venue. Just right across the street from TPC Scottsdale, where the Waste Management is this weekend. So anyway, the punts were just hilarious and so fun, and I think that field goal would be pretty fun to root for as well.
Mm-hmm.
My second one, this is a little bit in line, I think, with how you guys might see the game going, which is I don't feel like this one's against necessarily that. I know you said grind it out, but I just think that Jalen Hurts is going to find a way against Spagnola's defense, blitzing him all over the place, to hit a couple of big plays in this game. I actually really like the AJ Brown over. I like some other things there, but I have Jalen Hurts over 249.5 yards passing, and Jalen Hurts will score an anytime touchdown at plus 425. Give me the tush push for a touchdown every which way this game. So I love that. I mean, I almost feel like just chalk up the anytime TD.
The anytime TD is almost a given.
The over 249, that's going to be the tricky
Yeah,
part
because
here.
he averages
But
like 193,
yeah,
I
not
think.
right.
So
Hopefully
that's
a screen pass to Saquon and he'll bust it.
Yeah,
That's all it
screen to
takes is one good
Saquon.
screen. Yep.
Devonta Smith, they hit him on a little slant and he breaks through because the safety's blitzing or something. I mean, Spags, man, that guy, he brings the heat. So I just feel like there's a play or two that they might throw that 50, 60 yarder in there, and maybe that gets Jalen to over 249. So, but plus 425, I really like that odds again, just because of that anytime TD feels like a lock. So that was my second one, Bierman.
Yeah, no, Bill, I don't disagree. Actually, my second one kind of goes along with a lot of the same rationale you used. I'm just gonna go with Jalen Hurts to win the MVP at plus 360. Again, I mean, I think the Eagles are gonna win the game. Typically, a quarterback is the. Now I understand Saquon could just as easily win it, but I do think Hurts is going to have to step it up more than he did against the Commanders. I think he is going to have to pass it. I think he is going to have to use his legs more often. I think there are going to be some explosive plays. I do love A.J. Brown on the overtime. I think A.J. Brown is also a dark horse to win the MVP because I could see him having two really long touchdowns, perhaps 200 yards receiving or 180 yards receiving. So, but I at plus 360,
makes sense.
I like it for that. So, all right, Pat, what's your last one?
Well, I called it a Saquon game. So Saquon over 74.5 rush yards and anytime touchdown with a Philly win is plus 180. Would like to see that number a little higher to have all three of those, but you feel like 74.5 rush yards.
That's a given.
That's a given.
Yeah.
Anytime TD. So I'm just picking if you like a Philly win, rather than put your money on Philly at whatever plus 105 or something like that, take the plus 180. Assume he's going to get a touchdown in 74 yards.
I like it.
Yeah, that seems really smart.
Is what it
genius.
Is.
Yeah, I mean,
I read books, guys. I read books.
That's right. I love it. My third one is probably a little bit more for my Chiefs love, which is, and this is a little bit of how I see this game playing out, I guess, as well. But I also just really like the odds on this play. So Xavier Worthy scores a receiving touchdown, which I actually really like in this game. He's been coming on. They've been targeting him more. I think the focus will be on stopping Kelsey. So I think Xavier Worthy finds a way to get in the end zone with the receiving touchdown. And then Kareem Hunt scores a rushing touchdown. And I just feel, again, like when they get down in the red zone, they do like to run the ball inside the 5, inside the 10. So give me Kareem Hunt to score that rushing touchdown, as the game, I do really believe, will be a little bit of a grind. They're going to try to get the ball on the ground and run the ball. But Xavier Worthy probably gets that receiving TD at some point. I don't necessarily think a long touchdown from the Chiefs, but just those like methodical, grinded out drives. Andy Reid magic finds a way to get Xavier Worthy matched up on that linebacker, and his speed gets him into the end zone. So plus 725 for that. I actually really like the guy.
That's good.
Those two Chiefs are very likely to score. So that was my third play.
Yeah, so my last one's gonna go Chiefs way as well. Not big odds here. It's just a minus 110, but I like their kicker, Harrison Butker, to go over 7.5 points.
Love that one.
2 field goals and 2 extra points cashes. Obviously 3 field goals cashes. So I think the Eagles, like I said, their defense is going to slow down the Chiefs. It goes into the narrative that I believe is going to happen, which is a low scoring game, but the Chiefs are still going to move the ball. They're still going to have plenty of field goal opportunities. Butker's got a big leg. He's a clutch kicker. So accurate. I really like that one. So over 7.5 points for Butker.
Yeah. I love that one, Bierman.
Yeah, that was fun. The prop bet I love. I'm not like a huge prop guy, like throughout just like a regular game on Sunday, but for the Super Bowl, I love looking through all those prop bets, dude. And that list you sent us, Bill, was great. Just going through a lot of those, and those were the 3 that jumped out at me most. So should be a fun Sunday, and hopefully everyone wins those bets.
Yeah, have fun, and if you get in the props pool, good luck.
Yeah. All right, fellas. Well, let's dive into this week's top 5. This is a good one. I think
So
it's going to be really, really fun. We're going to talk about simple, the best athletes of all time. Pound for pound, who do we think are the best athletes in history? So I'm going to just leave it at that. When I get to me, I'm going to kind of set it up with the criteria I use, because I think everybody can look at this a little bit differently. So I'll share kind of how I looked at it. But Pat, why don't you start us off with number 5 and 4?
Yeah, well, and it can't be me because I'm on the panel.
That's true.
That's right.
Good.
Can't vote for yourself.
How many of you guys? How many of you guys have a painted football in your background? I mean, I'm kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, my criteria was basically, I would like a guy like Michael Phelps swimming. I didn't think he was like an athlete. Like, he can swim, but like athlete for me was more like, I don't know, can run, catch, hand-eye, stuff like that. So, sorry, Michael Phelps, but my number 5, and this is a shocking one, but Tyreek Hill. I think that guy is an incredible athlete, super fast. He could be a world-class sprinter, but he's also was an incredible wide receiver. Guy, I mean, just can do backflips, front flips, any. I mean, he could probably be a gymnast too. So give me Tyreek Hill as my number 5. I know there's going to be a lot of people who will be like, really? Seriously? But that's why he's number 5. So Tyreek the Freak. What about you, Bill? I do too.
Yeah, throw your 4 in there. Throw your 4.
My number 4 is going to be Deion Sanders.
Yeah, man.
I mean, I just watched the 30 for 30 with my son, and he was not alive in that era, so it was fun to expose him to what it was like to watch Deion Sanders go from playing in the NFL and then same day going to play in the World Series, and how cool that was. So yeah, prime time is number 4. Prime time.
Yeah. It's super hard to argue with those guys, man. Incredible athletes. My criteria, you guys, is probably going to be a little bit different than you guys. I threw in a little bit of one of the things, and this is, I don't know, as I've gotten older, I find myself really being interested in like adventurous people that just do insane feats of human strength, skill, endurance, everything else. Not your typical, top 6 sports guys necessarily. And so with that in mind, my number 5, we talked about him a little bit on episode 24, and it's Alex Honnold, who is famous for climbing El Capitan unaided by ropes, equipment, etc. The movie Free Solo, if you haven't seen it, is an absolute white knuckler gripping whatever is close to you. If you're afraid of heights, Mr. Klett, don't watch this thing. I mean, it is absolutely nuts. But what really popped this guy into my brain for being in my top 5 was Marcy and I went down to Yosemite National Park a couple years back, part of an anniversary trip. And to stand in front of El Capitan, the face of that sheer granite rock mountain, was one of the most incredible things I've ever witnessed in person in my life. And then to think that there is a human being that climbed from where we were standing at the bottom of this thing to the top without a rope or anything is just honestly the most mind-blowing thing I think I have ever imagined witnessing in person. So Alex Honnold gets my number 5. Number 4, way more traditional. I threw Bo Jackson in there as my number 4. In my mind, probably the best 2-sport athlete of all time. Deion's got to be up there. I'm sure there's other people that I may even be forgetting, but for a kid growing up and watching this kid, Bo Jackson kid, compete for the Royals, compete for the Raiders, I mean, he absolutely destroyed the middle linebacker for the Seahawks, a guy named Brian Bosworth, at the goal line. Monday Night Football, one of the most iconic plays. Madden, calling this thing. It's just crazy cool. Another one, he runs for an 80-yard touchdown and disappears up into the tunnel in the Kingdome. You guys have probably seen that clip as well. But, here is a Seahawk fan. I'm watching this guy just torch us on the football field and then turn around and torch the Mariners shortly thereafter for the Royals or the White Sox, right? I mean, just an incredible athlete, and unfortunately, due to his hip injury, football career cut short. If it was in today's day and age with medicine and what's going on, he's probably fixed, right? And continues to even play in his football career. But Bo Jackson, just absolutely incredible. Cool commercials too, with Nike, a great ad campaign with him. So Bo is my number 4.
Love it. Awesome. So yeah, I think it's important to set up how I thought about this list. Kind of similar to how Pat shared his. To me, it's not necessarily the best at their sport. This is athletic. And to me, that means they showed they can play multiple sports, or they excelled in a way that just makes me believe they are ultra athletic and can be really good in other sports because of their speed or agility or another type of universal attribute that typically helps someone do well in an athletic event. So with that, guys, sorry, but I got to do the patented Bierman twofer to start things out.
Let's go.
So my number 5 is actually 2, but they have some similarities here, so that's why. So I'm gonna go with 2 80s track stars, just absolute phenoms and Olympic legends. I'm gonna start with Jackie Joyner Kersee. So guys, she dominated the 80s and early 90s. She excelled in the heptathlon and the long jump. She won 3 Olympic gold medals, 1 silver and 2 bronze across 4 different Olympic games. She was also a 4-time world champion outside of the Olympics. Here's something. Since 1988, she has held the world record in the heptathlon, a record that still stands today. And by the way, if you're wondering what goes into the heptathlon, here are the 7 grueling events: 100-meter hurdles, high jump, shot put, 200-meter sprint, long jump, javelin throw, 800-meter run. She holds and has held that world record, for 36 years and counting. So,
wow.
Yeah, she locks in as my number 5 greatest athlete of all time. And then tied with her is another Olympic legend from the 80s, Carl Lewis. 9-time Olympic gold medalist. He also threw in 1 silver, 10 world championship medals, 8 of those gold. He competed from 1979 to 1996, winning his final Olympic long jump gold at 35 years old. He's one of only 2 athletes in history to win gold in the same individual event at 4 straight Olympics. He joined discus thrower Al Order as the only track and field athletes to ever do that. So just Carl Lewis I thought was incredible as a kid growing up, and he's my number 5 as well, along with Jackie Joyner Kersee. Number 4,
singing Bierman is not part of your equation.
No, it is not. We'll go with number 4, what Pat said, Deion Sanders. As much as I don't love him as a coach, I have to give this guy his due. At Florida State, Sanders was a 2-time All-American cornerback. He also starred on the Seminoles baseball and track teams. He was drafted by the Falcons, kicking off a 14-season NFL career with 5 different NFL teams. He also played 9 seasons in the major leagues as an outfielder for the Yankees, Braves, Reds, and Giants. He's the only athlete in history to play in both a Super Bowl and a World Series. And he won 2 Super Bowls to go along with that. So love him or hate him, Primetime is a once-in-a-generation type athlete, and he's my number 4.
Can't argue with it.
All right, Pat, what do you got for 3 and 2?
3, I went with Bo Jackson at 3. One ahead of Deion, just because you could tell he was a special athlete. He was just a little stronger, little stronger than Deion. But we don't need to talk more about Bo, but Bo knows. And then number 2 for me was Bruce Lee.
Yeah,
I feel like Bruce Lee is just fluid and awesome, and he could probably do any sport he wants, but kicking ass was his main
I thought
job.
about Bruce Lee.
And
It's a good one.
Yeah,
too.
He is a Seattle guy. Yeah.
Seattle guy.
Yeah, so give me Bruce Lee at number 2.
Yeah, good one.
Love it.
I didn't think of him. Yeah, that's a good one that I didn't have on
By
the
the
radar.
way, have you guys ever seen do you know the connection between Bruce Lee and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar by any chance?
I watched Enter the Dragon. That fight scene is awesome. It's so cool.
Do you know what we're talking about, Bill?
No, I don't know this.
There's was it Enter the? I thought for some reason it
I
was
think it was
Game
Enter
of
the
Death.
Dragon or something like that.
I thought it
or
was Game of
something,
Death, but it's somebody. Hey, we'll get our chief research officer on it. We have not put her to
Mackenzie.
work in a few weeks, so
That's right.
Mackenzie, get on it. Figure out what movie it is where Bruce Lee and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar fight to the bitter end.
Really?
There.
It's such an awkward, weird, like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar will just kick and his leg will reach across the room and hit Bruce Lee in the face, and he'll just be like, and come back. And
wow,
it was a great battle. Yeah.
Huh? Was he Lou Alcindor at the time?
No, he was Kareem.
He was
it was like during. It was like in the. It was long before he was in Airplane. It was like in the early to mid 70s, but he was starting to, get his acting chops.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. He was great in Airplane.
Lou Al-Jabbar. It was in his transition.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Yeah.
So,
and Pat, thanks for backing up my mindset on the Dion and Bo thing, because I wanted to put Dion in there, but I just had Bo ranked a little bit higher. And so anyway, that's kind of how I felt as well. But I mean, Dion, impossible to argue with that guy. Just absolutely incredible. I always remember my buddy Lucas, shout out Luke. He's probably going to listen to this as well. We were down in LA after we graduated from high school. We'd gone to every horse track in between Seattle and San Diego on this road trip. And we also hit Giants games at Candlestick, where we saw Barry Bonds, which was cool. And then in LA, we went to see the Dodgers, and the Reds happened to be playing the Dodgers. And so Dion was in center. And so Lucas was shouting at him from our right center field bleacher seats, "Come to Seattle," because he was a free agent to be. And so he looked over at Lucas and gave him a little, like not going to happen kind of type of thing or whatever. And we just thought it was the greatest thing ever that Dion gave that little shout out. But anyway, side story. All right, my number 3, this is kind of going against, I think, your guys' criteria, but I know pound for pound, athleticism, strength, etc. You're probably thinking like, Bill, you can't put a golfer in here, but I am putting Tiger Woods as my number 3. And the reason that I think Tiger fits on this list is because of not only his physical strength and his skill, his hand-eye, like all of those physical attributes, but also I just thought about his clutchness, his focus, his competitiveness, like all of those things, like his brain and his mental acumen, like just to me make him not only the best of all time in his field of golf, but also just in terms of being an athlete. And just a couple of stats as I was doing research for this, guys, it's like mind blown, like just going back and looking at Tiger's dominance in the game of golf. But he spent 683 straight weeks ranked as the number 1 player in the world. The second ranked player in that list, Greg Norman, 331. Like, I mean, incredible. He made the cut in 91% of the tournaments he's ever entered. He's missed 30-ish because the timing, and maybe recently he missed 1 or 2, but 30-ish in his entire career he missed tournament cuts. He has over 200 top 10s. He has over 110 victories worldwide. He's got 82 on the PGA Tour. He's tied with Sam Snead. Sam Snead golfed in tournaments that had like 20 players in them and won a bunch of his tournaments with just like, it was almost like a club championship thing. There's nobody that's Tiger's number 1 in victories in my mind. From 99 to 2003, he won 32% of the tournaments he played, including 7 majors. And then in the next 4 years, he won 41% of his tournaments and 6 more majors. I mean, the guy was just dominant across a number span of years. So there's a bunch more here, and I'll stop there. But the Tiger Slam, obviously, he won 4 majors in a row, capping in 2001 with the Masters. It's just absolutely incredible. The guy's the greatest to ever play the game, and just so clutch. So Tiger's my number 3. Number 2. Apologies, I will preempt my soccer one here. Pat can snore away, but my number 2 is Lionel Messi, the Argentinian footballer. What is amazing about Messi is not only is he, I think, without question, the greatest soccer player of all time in terms of stats and awards and in accomplishments, but the guy is 5'7" and he weighs 148 pounds. He is tiny, and he is, I mean, I'm sure you guys have at least seen highlights of Messi, like with the ball at his feet, sprinting at full speed with the agility and the skill, his vision. He's one of the greatest passers in the game of soccer. He's also one of the greatest finishers. It's simply poetry in motion watching this guy play. I also just think it's kind of cool that he ended up marrying his childhood sweetheart that he met at the age of 5. He has 3 boys. He's just a great human being. Married this woman that he's loved his whole life. They're best friends. They've been married ever since. The guy has 8 Ballon d'Or trophies, which is the award given to the best soccer player on planet Earth. 8. The next closest is 5, Cristiano Ronaldo. The guy's just simply the greatest, and he's just an unbelievable athlete. He's my number 2. Spearman?
Nice. All right. Well, I think you guys are going to be surprised to hear my number 3, because I don't think most people think of this guy as one of the greatest athletes ever. I'm going with Jackie Robinson as number 3. We all know how impactful he was to the game of baseball. Of course, racial integration. Number 42 is retired by the entire league. But I never realized how great of an actual athlete that this guy was. So just listen to some of these facts. So all the way going back to high school, he was a 4-sport varsity star in high school: football, basketball, baseball, and track. And he also played tennis as well. He was selected for the Pomona annual baseball tournament all-star team alongside future Hall of Famers Ted Williams and Bob Lemon. He was named best athlete at his high school for 2 consecutive years. After graduating, he played in a Pasadena Junior College for a couple years, where he played football, baseball, and track. Then he went to UCLA, where he truly became an all-time sports legend. He was the first UCLA athlete to letter in 4 varsity sports: football, basketball, baseball, and track. He was part of one of the first integrated backfields in college football history. He led the nation in punt return average in 1939 and 1940. To this day, he holds UCLA's single-season record for yards per carry at 12.2.
Wow.
In track, he won the 1940 NCAA long jump championship. In basketball, he was a star guard for the Bruins team. And baseball was ironically his weakest sport. He actually hit under 100, but still, of course, finally found his footing in baseball, and that's where he made his mark. Not even going to go into all of his MLB accomplishments, because we all know that, but the guy could have gone pro in football, basketball, or track as well. So without question, I believe he's one of the greatest all-around athletes, and lands at number 3. Number 2, we're going way back for this one, as he's the only person on this list born in the 1800s. We're going with Jim Thorpe. He undoubtedly is one of the greatest pure athletes that our country's ever seen, regardless of time period. Another guy with just incredible stats. Quickly, 1912, he led Carlisle to a national championship. Yes, Carlisle won a national championship. In football, he scored 27 touchdowns, rushed for 1,900 yards. He was an All-American in 1911 and 1912, and future President Dwight Eisenhower, who played against him, later called Thorpe the greatest football player I ever saw. In the Olympics, he dominated. He won the gold medal in the pentathlon and gold medal in the decathlon in the 1912 Stockholm Olympics. King Gustav V of Sweden allegedly told him, "You, sir, are the greatest athlete in the world." He played 6 seasons in Major League Baseball for the Giants, Reds, and Boston Braves. He hit .327 in 1919. He also played minor league baseball well into his 40s. He played for barnstorming teams in the early days of pro basketball. He also was a lacrosse standout back in college. And just because he won the 1912 Intercollegiate Ballroom Dancing Championship too. So that guy is just incredible. Number 2. Yeah. All right, Pat, what do you got? Number 1 athlete of all time.
That leads into my number 1, Jim Thorpe. Just some crazy things. The one story you forgot to tell about Jim Thorpe was that someone stole his cleats in the Olympics?
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was in my notes, but I just was like, I'm running out of time. I'll pass over it. Yeah.
So everything's about to start, and he's got no shoes, so he had to fish out some old, like, mismatched pair of shoes from the garbage and put some tape around them and won the whole thing. So yeah, I mean, even when people were trying to to cut him down, he figured out a way to win. So yeah, he was my number one, and that's what else do you say? I mean, all those the
Incredible.
Bo Jackson before Bo Jackson and the
Yeah.
ballroom dancing. That's the kicker.
The ballroom dancing took it over the top. I mean, it is. It's
Yep.
just it's hard because obviously the guy played and lived more than 100 years before us, so we didn't. Not only did we not see him, but there wasn't even like there's not even like videos of him. I mean, maybe there's some grainy stuff for one play, but like, so we can't really see it, but just that's where statistics do come into play. And just seeing that, you're right. It's different eras, but I mean, man, the guy just seemed like he was incredible. So wish I got to see him. Sadly, he died. He died in poverty. The guy never could really capitalize on his athletic success. So that's kind of sad, but he was one of a kind for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that you guys have those. I actually had Jackie and also Jim Thorpe just as a shout out at number one, because I was thinking of kind of different eras and skills. But Jim Thorpe, to me, and going back and researching some of that, Bierman, I'm glad you highlighted that. And Pat, you called out the story about the shoes, because those are things where it's just like, wow. I mean, it's just crazy to think in that different era, but what a legend. I mean, the guy was just an incredible athlete. My number one, I went off the grid with this guy. And it still is, I think, because it is hands down the most amazing thing I've ever read or seen in my 51 years on this earth. And I went with Nims Persia. And if you guys don't know who this is, let me just give you a quick little synopsis. I mean, he is a Nepalese-born, naturalized British citizen that decided he would set out to scale all 14 of the 8,000 plus meter peaks on planet Earth. Okay. And not only was he going to do that, but he did it in 6 months and 6 days. Okay. And if you guys have not seen 14 Peaks, you have to see it on Netflix. It is absolutely my favorite documentary of all time. It is stunning. Okay. So that means 8,000 meters, right? That's peaks all over the height of 26,247 feet. The Italian Reinhold Messner, he did it first, and he did it without supplemental oxygen. It took him 16 years. Okay, then the next guy, South Korean guy named Kim Chang, he did it in 7 years and 310 days. Now, Nims used supplemental oxygen as in part to the safety of his expedition team, but he did it in 6 months and 6 days. I mean, absolutely ridiculous that he was able to accomplish this. Okay. Meanwhile, his mom also was dying of cancer as he was completing this thing. I mean, the story of this guy, absolutely ridiculous. Okay. So just to cap this thing off, he climbed the 5 highest peaks on Earth in 70 days as part of this effort. Okay. The documentary I mentioned, 14 Peaks, Nothing is Impossible. Go watch this thing. Absolutely crazy. He was a British Special Forces member of the Gurkhas. He then became what's called the Special Boat Service. And if you think about it, it's like our Navy SEALs. So he served in the British Army or Navy 15 years. His endurance and being Nepalese born, they say that his ability to process CO2 in your blood and all of the different effects of altitude on your body allow him to do this kind of feat, which is just kind of crazy. Just to finish this thing off, the last couple of things I'll say about Nims. In 2022, he climbed K2, Everest, and Lhasa without oxygen in just under 9 days. Okay, that's, I mean, unbelievable. And then in 2024, he set 2 more speed records in climbing. He climbed all 14 peaks again, this time without supplementary oxygen, in 2 years and 5 months, becoming the first ever person to do all 14 peaks twice, once with supplemental oxygen and once without. You guys, I mean, I've climbed mountains. I've done a lot of things like that in younger days, obviously, but like I did earlier with Alex Honnold, looking up at El Cap and like seeing the sheer magnitude. Can you imagine Everest, K2, Lhasa, all the different peaks that you're doing, climbing all 14 of those things in less than 7 months? I mean, I don't know how you can possibly put an athlete, above this guy. If you haven't seen that documentary, you have to go see it. incredible. So that's my number one.
I wrote it down. Yeah, I will check it out,
Nims
man.
Persia.
That's awesome. Yeah, so number one, Bo Jackson. Bo knows number one. He was transcendent. I'm not going to get into a ton of stuff because you guys covered him, but he's the only athlete in history to be an all-star in both the NFL and Major League Baseball. He won the Heisman Trophy back in 1985. He averaged 6.6 yards per carry, still an SEC record. Fourth most career rushing yards in SEC history at the time of 4,300. His number 34 jerseys retired there. In college baseball, he had a 401 batting average in 85 with 17 home runs. He was a college track and field star. He turned down the number one overall pick in the NFL to play for the Kansas City Royals. He was an 89 All-Star and All-Star Game MVP. He made history as the first player to hit a home run and steal a base in an All-Star game. You mentioned the Monday Night Football game, just legendary there. 221 rushing yards, a record for Monday Night Football, 91-yard touchdown run, and of course running over linebacker Brian Bosworth. He really is the ultimate what-if athlete because he did get injured, but I firmly believe he could be a Hall of Famer in two sports if he had stayed healthy. So for me, number one. All right, boys. That was awesome. That was great. And I am going to check out that documentary, Bill, because
it's so good.
Frankly, I not heard of that guy. So I'm going to go check it out.
Mm-hmm.
All right, boys. Well, that was fun and a nice nod to some of the greatest athletes that our sports world has ever seen. Speaking of greatness, let's get into the Nailed It update. We are finally here, listeners. The Super Bowl showdown is set with our 10 finalists competing this week for the ultimate prize, an unforgettable trip with Bill, myself, and of course, Pat Klatt. Just let's remind everybody of what's on the line here. An all-expenses paid trip to Cincinnati to hang with the three of us, a steak dinner at Jeff Ruby's, a sporting event, most likely will be a Reds game, but we'll see. Pat, of course, being Pat, and the winner will be a guest on this podcast. So let me remind everyone of the finalists who are going to be competing this weekend. They are Brandon Kramer, Corey Taylor, Dave Key, Jason Waxman, Jonathan Deal, Ken Wintermote, Matt Paston, Mike Carr, Nate Blackston. So these 10 are the only ones eligible to compete this week. So because of that, we're not going to actually do the segment live on our podcast today. We'll wrap things up here in just a moment. But for those of those 10 who might be listening, we will get you the questions. We'll email you the link to submit your answers for this week. So Bill, anything to add there?
No, just thanks for playing and good luck this week. I think you guys are going to enjoy the 10 questions and enjoy the game and best of luck.
Yeah, awesome. All right, CMAN Nation. Well, sadly, it is time to exit CMAN Sports, but it's going to be a great sports weekend, so enjoy the Super Bowl. Before we leave you, let's hit you with a few reminders. Follow us, like us, subscribe to us, spread the word. Instagram, hit that follow button at Enter CMAN Sports. Facebook at Enter CMAN Sports. Join the conversation. Stay updated. We, of course, are on YouTube at Enter CMAN Sports. Subscribe to us there. Catch all of our latest video content and our website, entercmansports.com. As I mentioned in the open, we've leveled up with a fresh new look. We've got pro writers dropping daily content, much more coverage than we've ever had before. So check it out. Let us know what you think. Enjoy the weekend, CMAN Nation, and may all your prop bets and squares numbers hit big time. Peace out and take care.
Good luck.
Yep.